Hello everyone and welcome to my knit with me video. This is going to be something very new and very different. I suppose it's very similar to a stitch with me, except I will just be knitting. This is a beautiful Afghan that I'm knitting, and you can see it's kind of difficult to show the whole thing on the camera, but this is one end and I'm working rows and rows and rows right to the other end. So effectively it's going to be like one huge rectangle. This is the beautiful wool I'm using. It's called Heartland and it's super soft. This pattern is free, by the way, if anyone's interested in having a go. If you know how to do your cables, do go in and grab this pattern. It's on the Lion Brand, is it Lion Brand website? Free knitting pattern from Lion Brand. I'll put a link in the description below, and it's called Fisherman's Wool Lovers Afghan Knot. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful Afghan with loads and loads of cables running through it. Sort of complicated to knit. And I also wrote out the whole pattern again. Although it was correct, the pattern's correct, it's not detailed enough. So I had to do all of my rows in a spreadsheet so that I could clearly see what I was doing on every single row, because I'm working on so many different sections. This is the only way that I could sort of master it. So some of you will know how to do this kind of knitting, and some of you will have no idea. Okay, so I'm going to have to kind of give some pointers, but without going into too much detail, because I'm sure that we don't want just a full-on tutorial, but rather something a bit more easygoing. And if you want a full tutorial in this, if you want me to actually start something from scratch or show you how to go along with this pattern, then let me know. And if I've got enough people interested, I will go on to the, I will go and do like some kind of, weekly or monthly tutorial or whatever it is. But I'm going to do just a basic overview and show you how I'm doing this knitted piece. This is my cable needle. It's thick because for me it has to be the same thickness as the needle I'm using to knit it with, because that makes sense. And the whole point of a cable needle, briefly, is just to pick up your stitches like so. And if you want to twist them around, you bring one off the needle and let it hang like that. And that's really what a cable needle is for. Then you carry on knitting, and then you'll pass this one through and then you'll knit it wherever in the pattern it says to knit it. So you do kind of have to be pretty good at, managing your stitches and managing basically 3 needles at the same time. But you're not going to be using this the whole time. This is only just for certain sections and areas. So where am I at the moment with this? I'm doing a row 68 and I've just got to the end of a section, and now I'm going to start another section. And you can see how I'm going to be using this cable needle now to do this particular part of this pattern. So this part of the pattern is a purl 3. I always have to keep looking at my pattern, because otherwise I get completely lost. When it's something like cables, it's not something that I can just sit in front of the television and do. There is just no way that I can do that, because it's far too awkward. And to be honest, I have had to frog quite a number of rows just because I've been stupid and decided to watch a movie and not paid attention to what I'm doing. So I'm going to actually do a cable now. I'm going to do a 2/1 right cross. So when it's the right cross, you really want to move your stitch, the stitch that's on your needle, behind. If it's a left cross, any stitch that's on your needle, when you pick it out, you leave it at the front. If it says right cross, generally leave it at the back. I'm going to show you now. So I'm only working from this purple divider to this purple divider. So that is one section, and that's the one I'm concentrating on. When I get to the next section, which is between the next 2 little plastic things, that's the next section I do, and so on. So because each little section has different instructions. So the only way you can really keep track of it is putting these little dividers in. Otherwise, honestly, you just go crazy. So with this one, I have to do 2/2 right cross, which is really simple. watch this, you pick up 2 stitches from the left side of your needle, and they are quite slippy because the wool is quite soft actually. So you've got hooked in those 2 stitches, you slip them out and you let this thing hang at the back out of the way. And then what you do is you knit 2, ignoring the 2 that you've kind of chucked at the back there. And then once you've knitted 2 on your regular needle, you bring up this yellow needle again, you slip those 2 stitches, that's the fiddly part, I'll admit that is the fiddly part. So I've slipped the 2 stitches to the end of there, and I'm going to knit them back onto my right needle. And done. You've done a twisty stitch, that's a cable. So you basically knitted 2 after holding 2 at the back. So you've twisted them around, that's basically it. So that's a 2 over 2 right cross, and then I want to do a 2 over 2 left cross. So I'm going to do the same thing in reverse. Instead of holding them, just chucking them at the back, I'm going to pick up my 2 little stitches, chuck them at the front and let them hang, and now you can see that they're just hanging there. Then I'm going to do 2 stitches of knit. Then I'm going to bring, actually literally drop that left needle. Then I'm going to bring this, I'm going to call it a banana cable needle because that's the colour, to the end up here, because you can't really knit them down there. Bring them up as close as you can without slipping them off, and there we go. I'm going to knit those 2, 1, 2, the 2 that I was holding at the front. So now we've got an opposite twist. We've got a right twist and a left twist, and that's how that pattern is supposed to look. So that's this section, and every time you do that row it's always going to be the same. Then I'm back to finishing that little section, which is purl 2 stitches. So there's always going to be different little set of instructions for each little section. So it's really good to practice and try out different, you know, different ways that you can do cables, because they're really beautiful. They add so much. They're just so pretty, aren't they? I mean, look at that one there. It's going twisted all over the place. This is not something you can do watching TV. And I was really scared to do this part here when I first looked at this pattern. There's kind of like loads of yarn being wound around that stitch. And it really scared the hell out of me, because when I first looked at it, I had no idea how to do that. Absolutely no idea. And when I came to that particular part of the pattern, I, you know, stared at it for the longest time because I really wasn't too sure, but I tried it out. The worry I have with trying something out is that I can't get it back to its original state if I have to frog it. Because frogging normal stitches is quite easy, but when you're frogging these twisty ones, it's so easy to get confused. They're just harder to frog because they're actually twisted. But I actually figured it out, and I did it right the first time, which was a miracle. And then I was confident enough to do it again. So there's one down here where it's all kind of twisted over the yarn. Basically like 8 times of wrapping the yarn around the stitch. And then the same thing here. And it's going to come up again after this row, but I don't think I'm going to show it to you because I don't want your head to explode. Like I said, if you're interested in a tutorial of this kind, then I'm very happy to provide a from scratch tutorial. But that's got to be something that you know, you're going to be interested in doing, because it's going to take me a bit of effort to put together. And I don't want to put something like that together and find that, you know, nobody's interested or it's going to be a waste of time. I've also got to get back to my stitching as well, because I'm really enjoying the stitching, and I'm not doing the knitting obviously half as much as I'm doing the stitching. So I really find that I've got to find time, and I like to do this in bed as well, because I've got a night lamp that's really quite bright and I can shine it down onto my knitting. But then I find I get too tired as well, so I don't want to be doing it when I'm too tired, because then, oh, well, it just, you know, imagine doing cables when you're tired. they just turn out terribly. Now I'm doing something else called 2 over 1 right cross. So instead of putting 2 stitches at the back, I'm only putting 1. So 2 over 1, 1 stitch at the back, and it's a right cross. Knit 2, and then purl that one at the back. For some reason I find the back one a bit trickier than the right one. When you put the stitches at the back, I find them trickier than when you have the stitches at the front. Maybe it's not the same for everybody, but I do find that happens to me. Now I'm on 2 over 1 left crossed. So 2 at the front, and I'm only going to deal with 1 stitch at the back because it's 2 over 1. You know, it does click eventually. It might look super complicated and fiddly to you, but it does click eventually. And like I said, the more you practice these things, and I wouldn't recommend starting, probably if you're not a knitter at all, this is definitely not something you should start with. You start with a very simple 1 twisted cable, like say in the middle of a scarf or something, so that you can get used to the cables, because otherwise it's just very difficult. And I think there you can see how that little twist came out at the top. And I'm going to do another one on the left side, which is 2 over 1 right. This is just, actually this section is the hardest part of the whole thing, these cable bits. But then it is a deeply cabled pattern, so you know, you wouldn't expect anything else. And yeah, sometimes I have to frog. I had to frog an entire row because I messed it up royally. And I was so scared to frog cables because I thought I'll never get them all back on the needle. They'll be all twisted around. But I did manage to get them back on the needle, which was just, you know, sometimes you think you can't do things and you really can. It's just a matter of keep on trying. Eventually it clicks, it really does. I remember when I wouldn't even have looked at anything cable-like because I was petrified. I was very much a scarf knitter with just simple knit and pearls. And anything cable related just scared the hell out of me. It was, you know, something for like super clever people who were doing it all the time, day and night. So what am I doing now? Purl 2 over 1 right cross. Is it 2 over 1 right cross? No, that can't be right. Let me just get my bearings. So I've done 3 pearls, 2 over 1 right cross, 2 over 1 left cross. There. Purl 2. Counting the stitches really helps. And now I've done 2 over 1 right cross, and I have to do 2 over 1 left cross. Yeah. Always go back and check your section, what you've already done, if you're unsure, because I tell you, it is possible to frog and fix, but it's not recommended. No, see, I've already made a mistake there. I was supposed to purl that stitch. Yeah, and then knit 2 stitches here. There is no part of this pattern that is just simple knit, trust me. There, I've just completed these 2 twisty bits here. If you get a couple of rows of just simple purl or simple knit, then that's really great. I have to remember to put my needle down as well because I keep hanging on to it. And here comes another section. So I've passed over my little plastic separator. I really can't remember the name of these things today. And I've got this section here, which consists of so many stitches. And on the pattern, you know exactly what section that is. And I'm going to go for it. I'm actually going to go for it. So this is purl 2. So what's happening weather-wise here in Edinburgh? Well, we've had the most terrible weather yesterday. It was so rainy. I couldn't even go outside, it was so bad. I really didn't feel comfortable about going outside and getting totally soaked. And today it's completely different. The sun is shining, it looks glorious. It's a completely different day. So I think I will actually venture out today for a little while, once I've finished a few of these completely crazy stitches. There's another twist I've done there. It's there on that bit. And I'm going to do another twist to the left. So it's kind of like twist to the left, twist to the right. Once you get used to left and right, you've got no problems. It's all about getting used to using the 3 tools that you need to use, and then it's fairly simple. So actually what I've just done there since I started this video is now on repeat throughout this whole blanket. So once you've mastered how to do these twists, you can do them in different places, in different areas around the pattern to make different twisty bits. So it's a real wild twisty blanket, and I think the effort you put into it really shows, doesn't it? The effort you put into something like this makes something so unique and special. And yes, it's difficult, but it's very rewarding at the same time. And I really love it. In fact, I'm thinking about doing another one of these in maybe a beautiful kind of like purple or a mauve colour. I'm thinking about the variations that I can do. I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish this, but I'm not worried about it. Not worried about how long it's going to take and the time it's going to take, because I'm really just going with the flow and enjoying it. And it's so squishy and soft. If I didn't mention before, it's called Heartland. This is not the wool that's in the pattern itself. I couldn't actually get the wool that's in the pattern. But the wool, the one in the pattern is called Fisherman's Wool, but I just got something very similar by the same brand, this Heartland stuff, which is called Acadia or Arcadia. Anyway, I put a link in the description to all these things, and it is super soft. I'm not sure if it actually has got some wool in this one, does it? Or is it just acrylic? Yeah, it's completely acrylic, which is good for my allergies actually, because I think wool can actually cause me problems. But it's so soft, super soft acrylic, so it is a better class of acrylic than most. So that's where I'm going to leave this today. So yeah, let me know what you think of my project. Do you like it? I've actually got into a bit of a stitchy mood today, and now that I've done a little bit of this, I'm just going to finish the end of my row here. Then I'm going to go and do some stitching, so I may come back with a stitch with me. But until then, I just want to say thanks, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon.